For 2026, are you more focused on making America great again, or how about making yourself great again? Yeah, let's talk about that. Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of The Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle. So you want to learn how to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving your pump at the gym? Stick around. We'll talk about that later in today's episode, or simply scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And by the way, you'll know you're in the right spot when you see a little note on the top of your browser saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols, which means you'll get 15% off your order. One more time, cardiomiracle.com, the best heart health supplement in the world. So we're going to talk about making yourself great again today. And this is something, going back to the old Jordan Peterson, you got to clean your own room first, right? Like that's the mentality we're kind of bringing to the table here today, because you can't make your world great, your country great, your state great, your community great until you first make yourself great, right? To in the Jordan Peterson mentality, clean up your own room first, clean up your own house first, right? Clean up your own mess first. And sometimes that requires us to look in the mirror and say, oops, I'm not doing too hot in these certain areas. Maybe it's time for some reflection and maybe some changes, right? And for some folks, that might be some behavioral changes, maybe not drinking as much. For folks who've listened to the show for a long time, they've heard my story of quitting alcohol back in 2021. Maybe it's not eating as much. Again, folks have heard my story of going from 380 pounds to losing 180 pounds back in the day, back like 15 years ago. So we all go through, changes in life, but sometimes it does require those hard conversations. And also sometimes it requires a coach. It requires accountability and someone actually holding your feet to the fire. So joining us today is someone who is actually someone who's perfect for that. If you're looking for a coach, but also going to help us, talk about some big changes you can make in your life today. Joining us here on the show is the Awake Coach Bradley Burlingame. Welcome to the show, Coach Bradley. How you doing?
Brian, man, thank you so much. Really, it's wonderful, wonderful to be here. It's funny you mentioned, how are you going to save the country if you can't save yourself, right? Like you have to come first. And I know just from being in this patriot movement for over a decade now, like it is. It's common, right, to kind of hyperfixate on politics. We're on a 24/7 news cycle, yep. Right? And it never ends, especially with this 47 administration. The hits never stop coming. But at a certain point, it's fascinating. One of the things that a lot of my clients come to me and talk about immediately right off the bat is I got a data problem. I'm on Telegram, or I'm on X, or I'm on Facebook, whatever it is. And there's a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of attention given to that. And in the end, like the best advice I could ever give anyone, please make sure you're taking breaks from the digital. Yep. Please, like yep. What's the old cliche? Go out and touch grass. Go lean against a tree. Like whatever it is that you can do to maintain balance. Because I think between you, me, and your audience, I don't think it is going to get any calmer. I don't think it's going to get any saner. I think it's going to get cartoonier in the next X number of months, years. And so it is important. Like we have to take care of ourselves. And that is really that's my goal. That's my mission, is to help people not only take care of themselves, but to go to the next level.
And I was going to add to the online world, right? It's going to get messier. I'm not sure if you've seen, Bradley, like this AI slop that is everywhere nowadays. And we're going to get to the point where we're not going to it's not only going to be you get online and you look at something and aren't sure whether it's real or not. But I actually feel we're going to get to the point where the in real life, the going out and touching grass, that becomes the experience, right? Because it's real. And that is something I'm actually kind of excited for, right? Because we've seen, I picked on a member of my family many a times during the show, and I'm going to keep his His relation to me adjacent, just because if I outlined it, it'd be very obvious who it is. But he is a big video gamer, right? And he literally, I mean, Marty, I'm not kidding, Bradley. He goes through and he will sit down, he'll go into his room, and he will shut the door, and you will not see him for 12 hours, right? He will, and he just games. And that is his online world. That is his real world. And there is a very big disconnect between what is happening in our real life versus what he's hearing and seeing through the confines of online. You add in all the goofball stuff with AI and you know, the stuff where you're going to be able to have people. I mean, I just saw a video where this guy was using this video AI generation software where he can sit there and it's looking at his face and he can go side to side, and then it will digitally create an AI avatar of the kids from Stranger Things, and they can do all the facial expressions and it looks photo real, right? That's where we are today in January of 2026. I'm old enough, Bradley, to remember back in 2022, 23, when ChatGPT first came out and they were starting to play with the video generation, and everybody was making fun of the Will Smith eating spaghetti video. And it was just you know, Will Smith looking all googly and stuff, right? You fast forward to today, just saying, in a very short time, we've taken leaps and bounds. Just imagine where we're going to be in another 2 years. You're going to go online and genuinely not know what's real, what's fake, what can I trust? And I think the whole in-person building those real relationships, being able to shake someone's hand, look someone in the eye in person, that's going to have so much more weight to it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you've got a couple of brilliant points here. I mean, when a technology gets released, right, there's all of a sudden a pendulum swing wildly to one side, right? And so that's the propagation of the AI writing, right? Which I've actually gotten attuned to rather quickly. I can tell when someone's using AI to write, right? And it's funny because they don't seem to understand that some of us can see it quite clearly, right? And so I've actually started on my Substack and other places. I've started to leave out punctuation marks. I will include at least one typo somewhere in, if you read the article, right? Just so I'm trying to find that balance. And so what you're talking about in the return to the physical, to us actually getting together and shaking hands and cooking barbecue, doing like whatever it is, like you're going to see that as the pendulum comes back to center. Same thing with societal changes and a lot of the policies, terrible policies, social policies that the left was pushing, they pushed way too far to one side. And now you've seen it. You've seen it in multiple ways, the reality adjusting and coming back to whatever center is now. I mean, think about AI, blockchain, robotics. Think about how much different this reality is going to be in just 10 years, brother. Just 10 years. Most folks
factor in
aren't
those
ready.
CBDCs and all that kind of nonsense the government's trying to do. Like it's exciting and scary at the same time, right? Because for every advantage we're making, we know that behind the scenes there are nefarious forces, right? That are trying to do things that are not just like detrimental to our success as humanity. But I would say, you know, like it's malicious in intent in a lot of these instances. And that's the part that scares me, right? Like we know that there was a push for, what was the population, like 500 million people for the entire planet. Like there was that whole push there back in the 2000s. And that's not like that just goes away. There are very much people who think we are overpopulated as a planet. They would absolutely love to call, you know, a half, if not more of the population. They watch the Avengers of Infinity War and Bradley, they get a little excited. They're like, oh, Thanos is able to snap his fingers and evaporate half of the world immediately. Like, why can't we do that? Actually, wait, Bradley, I don't know if you remember this, Bradley. There was an article, I think it was published by The Atlantic, maybe it was some lefty organization, and it was out with Infinity War, and they actually like are making the argument that Thanos was right from a utilitarian standpoint. And that's the mentality of some of the folks we're dealing with, Bradley. I'm not saying that to be like, you know, disparaging towards folks that disagree with us, but rather there are very real people out there who would have no qualms whatsoever of pulling the lever, right, in 1942 Nazi Germany, right? If in their head they're able to make the rationalization that it's for the good of society, just like Thanos snapping his finger, just substitute him for, this is the final solution. Like that's the only difference in morals and in ethics. In terms of the outcome, though, people will rationalize horrible things. And here's a tie to personal life, right? Like we all do this. We will all rationalize terrible things for ourselves because we try to like almost pretend that if I can make it sound good enough to myself, I'm almost going to convince myself that this horrible thing I'm doing, it's not actually that bad. As a matter of fact, everybody else is doing it. So what does it matter? Everybody else drinks. Everybody else is getting trashed on the weekend, Bradley.
That's the basis for every low-level addiction.
You're trying to stay sharp, whether it's for work, learning, or just not forgetting where you left your keys. Been there. But lately, the mental fog hits hard. And brain fog isn't just stress. It's often tied to poor blood flow and low nitric oxide levels because your brain needs oxygen just as much as your other muscles do. Because without it, you're slower to process, less focused, and more fatigued. And that's one of the many reasons why I trust Cardio Miracle. Not only does it boost nitric oxide for heart and circulation, it supports cognitive clarity, focus, and even mood regulation thanks to its unique blend of L-arginine, CoQ10, vitamin D3, and antioxidant-rich superfoods. So if you're tired of feeling mentally cloudy, give your brain what it's craving. Click the link in the show notes, scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS, which will give you 15% off your order. Just look for the little note on the website saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now let's get back to the show.
Right. I mean, if you consider what addictive substances really are, they are coping mechanisms, and some coping mechanisms are better than others, right? And as you well know, food and booze, two huge ones. Matter of fact, they tend to go hand in hand. It's almost like all of a sudden chicken wings become 1,000 times more attractive after a couple of beers. It's very interesting where this is all going. I mean, consider, Henry Kissinger was arguably the most notorious and longstanding cultural and governmental attaché of our lifetime. He had high positions of power for over 50 years. He called the general population useless eaters that were doing nothing but really using resources, breathing our air. And again, consider AI, blockchain, robotics, consider 10 years, 15 years from now. The goal has always been less people for them, because why would they support these quote unquote useless eaters that are bringing nothing to the society? So it is going to be, and if you look at birth rates around the world, they are going to get their goal. Not as many as they wanted, sir, but they are going to get their goal of less people. And so from my perspective, the best revenge you can have against the cabal, the shadow government, like whatever phrase you want to use, the best goal, the best revenge is to take care of yourself at a very high level and attempt to live a long and healthy life. Long enough where not only can you make yourself great again, you can actually go and be of service. That's the key to all of this, man, because that's what's coming.
Yeah,
that's what's coming.
The being of service part, Bradley, and I want to emphasize this because there's always this with him, right? The what's in it for me mentality of your average person. And I get that, right? Like I'm a sales executive by trade. I teach go-to-market strategies for organizations. Like my whole thing is to teach people to understand who's your ideal customer and then help you articulate the with them to them, right? Like that's what we're doing here. And when you're thinking of like, how do you get your average person to like kind of take a step back and almost selfishly approach it, but also then have to flip it and say, but you're also doing this because you have to do it for your community. You have to be a contributing member of your society. And I'm going to pick on our friends on the left a little bit here for a second, Bradley. Like, I see a lot of these folks, they have the most altruistic of values. It's not their money, when it's not their time, not their resources, right? If it's Elon Musk and his billions of dollars in the piggy bank, right? They have every way to spend that. But as soon as you ask them, hey, have you volunteered for your community recently? Have you taken steps to get involved? What do you do productively for your community, for your others? Do you donate to charity? Do you volunteer your time? More often than not, the answer, especially from folks on the left, and there are research studies to prove this, that predominantly the left does not give. They do not donate to charity. They do not volunteer their time. And no, by the way, when you see some of the studies that will come out, they will actually use like the protesting, right? The fight the power, organized protests as though that's community service. That's not. That's paid activism. Just to make sure we're all on the same page there. But it is interesting, and I've gotten flack for this. And Bradley, I'm going to ask you, because you're the health expert, right? You're helping people wake up. I've heard the argument that you will see, by and large, right, and this is more generalized, I'm saying that from the beginning, that people on the political, ideological right tend to, in 2026 specifically, be more outwardly focused in a positive, health conscious perspective, right? Not to say that there's not guys who drink lots of beers and are eating very unhealthy or not living healthy styles on the right? That's not what this is saying. We're talking generally speaking, right? But you think more of like the MAHA movement, right? The Make America Healthy movement that has, in at least 2024, 2025, and here we are in 2026, like that has politically been more of a right-leaning movement by the nature of RFK kind of being like their poster boy and then being put in at HHS. But I mean, what are your thoughts there on the political breakdown of health?
It's fascinating. I mean, one of the reasons that I started to work with people, both individually and in groups, right? One of the reasons that I started this Awake Coach project 8 years ago now was the fact that I knew, after living in Los Angeles for almost 30 years, 95% of coaches, therapists, consultants, whatever you want to call people that do either emotional or spiritual work or attempt to revitalize and reimagine people, they're almost all leftist. I mean, the entire coaching sector is Northern California, Esalen Institute, right? It's very much based in liberal ideology. It's fascinating now to watch this administration, not so much the 45 administration, because it felt like President Trump was really just forced to play defense for those 4 years. Now we're actually playing offense, and we're seeing the most incredible movements in positive directions. You mentioned RFK. I'll say something that is wild to you. I'm an advocate for the well-informed, smart use of psychedelics in order to cure recovery problems, addiction problems, and trauma. I'm a huge fan. I have a long history of myself with psychedelic therapy, and it's changed my life. You never heard about psychedelic therapy during the Obama administration. You never heard about it during the Biden administration, with the exception of one very small bill. Other than that, you now have Doug Collins, the head of the VA, openly talking about veterans' right to try these substances. RFK has his own psychedelic consultant that he meets with once a week. So, I mean, it is absolutely fascinating that all of a sudden we're moving swiftly in a direction that really nobody thought we were going to be. RFK has done an amazing job. I don't know about you, sir, but he's done an amazing job with things, right? Like actual real progress and change. And it's exciting to see.
And let me just say, I didn't realize I was muted. There you go. I was muted. I was a goofball. Back when RFK was running for president, I was actually on RFK train there originally. I thought that his approach was very much refreshing and needed, right? We need to be able, and by the way, like this is where I think we're going to go in if not 2028, 2032, is that like we're going to go towards almost like a common denominator type of candidate where they are going to be focusing on these 80-20 issues. I just talked about this with Marty Langton. He's running for Harris County judge down in Houston last week. And we were talking about how, Scott Jennings was down there talking about the 80-20 issues and to win on the 80-20 issues. And what we've seen is that there is kind of this like the normie mentality in a good way that is starting to take a rise back in paying attention to politics. Like your average person, I think, is starting to pay more attention to the goofball stuff and saying, no, why are we doing this? Like there was that one thing where it was the Trump administration saying that they were going to start verifying that before welfare payments were going out towards these different like schools, that there were actually kids going there. And it's like, oh, on today's episode, everybody going, wait, we weren't doing that in the first place? Like, this is the stuff that as we start to do more and more of the, wait, this is just common sense stuff, I think you're going to get a candidate who's going to be very much like emblematic of like the common sense type of perspective. And by the way, you're already seeing this happen, right? We're seeing this right now manifest with Stephen A. Smith on the left, right? He's running as, well, he hasn't officially announced, but he's definitely been toying with it. As a normie Democrat, right? I think you could easily see someone like a Mark Cuban try to kind of pull himself into that kind of a role because there is a desire for like just sanity, for common sense, even though there are definitely areas I disagree with Mark Cuban or Stephen A. Smith. Objectively speaking, I would have either two of those guys over Kamala Harris or Tim Walz. I want a normal, common sense, sane person versus a leftist ideologue. No questions asked. I would embrace that as an alternative. If it came down to JD Vance versus Stephen A. Smith, my heart would actually feel a little bit better for the soul of our country. Bradley, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting, right? I don't think it's any mistake that we were shown Tim Walz. I don't think it's any mistake. I mean, out of everyone that they could have picked for VP, they picked the guy who arguably was going to introduce the general public to levels of fraud that by the time it's all said and done, will be almost unimaginable. Although I will say they haven't come out to California yet. I've been a resident of California for over 30 years, and Minnesota's amateur. It's amateur hour, bud. Wait until they get out here and they find out that they were laundering COVID funds through the prisons. You're going to have to get up real early if you want to be able to out fraud the state of California. But it is interesting, right? Donald Trump 25 years ago would have been a middle of the road Democrat. We are moving in a direction, but again, like we talked about at the top of the show, this is all about the societal pendulum swings back and forth, and we are finding whatever a new center looks like post COVID. Dare I say, maybe post the U.S. Treasury note, like the Federal Reserve note. We are in uncharted waters. And I think that at this point, you're going to see movements in the next, 36 months that are going to change generations. Generational changes are coming. And that's one of the reasons why I push so hard to really have people make themselves as great as they possibly can, to take care of themselves to a high level. The things that again, I'm 55. The things that I have known are coming are finally coming. And I want to be as healthy, as happy as I possibly can be, so I can enjoy this fourth quarter of my life with as few baggage, as little luggage as personally possible. Right. So I wanted to mention,
and it really, it really does come down to, though, like the personal health, right? Like you have to be, going back to where we started, to your point, you have to be good yourself first. And by the way, this might be controversial to some folks. I firmly believe that you, as a human being, you need to take care of yourself first before you try to take care of other people. It's like when you're in the airplane, they say, put the mask on yourself first before you put it on on others, right? Like I can't be useful if I'm a mess, if I'm hungover every day, if I'm a fat, obese slob, I can't be helpful. I can't be useful. And that not being able to be a contributor, to have value, not only is that just like mentally grating, it's depressing. And you end up back to what we were talking about very beginning. You become a drain, right? You become, what was the term? The you use the
useless eater.
A useless eater.
which is
go watch
is
my 600-pound life, and you'll see all the useless eaters. Oh my Lord, those big obese folks that, and of course they're all on welfare, right? And that's the kind of person you don't want to be.
Level 365 gives you real US-based support from real people who know the platform, so help is always easy to reach. Whether you need answers, changes, or troubleshooting, you'll talk to someone who can actually help. And as your business evolves, support scales with you. It's all powered by one dependable UC platform. Learn more at level365.com.
And by the way, congratulations on your time away from booze. Congratulations on the weight loss. Like that is from one, honestly, man, from one grown man to another. Those are some of the biggest hurdles that we will ever overcome. You know, I used to say one of the reasons that I stopped drinking and kept it down 13 years ago now was because every single time I started again, I ended up fat, drunk, and sad. Fat, drunk, and sad. And let me tell you, that is no way to run a popsicle truck.
No.
It's not, man. That is a miserable, and especially if the drinking is, mine was a maintenance thing, right? Like my father taught me how to drink, and I rarely saw the old man smashed, rarely saw him drunk, but always had a beer in his hand. And that is how I learned to drink. And so I ended up basically becoming a mirror of my father's behavior. It's a weird day. It's a weird day when you catch yourself in the mirror and you realize that you're becoming your father. It's a weird day, Brian. So for whatever it's worth, again, congratulations on your time. Congratulations on the weight and keeping it off. You look healthy, dude.
Thank you. Well, part of it,
you look clear. You look healthy.
Thank you. Well, and you go back to what we were just talking about at the beginning is like, I have a family, right? I have responsibilities. I have an obligation to be useful, to be around, right? Like I've seen way too many of growing up, right? Families where there was no dad for whatever reason, be that because he has abdicated his role of being a good dad, or on the tragic side, he passes away, right? So from both an obligation standpoint, but also from a health standpoint, a being around standpoint, I have to do the things to put myself in a position to make sure I'm around, right? Because I can't be useful if I'm not around. And that means going to the gym, working out daily, whether that's doing just even like light stretching or doing cardio every day, just doing something in the physical realm, trying to mentally grow every single day, challenging yourself, like to not take part in the vices of life that, especially in 2026, are so easily accessible. I could go to the Kroger right now and go get like a 6-pack immediately and be drunk. But you know what? Like, thank God, I think that alcohol smells like rubbing alcohol now. So I just don't want to even. The ultimate test was, and I'll tell you this, Bradley, and I'll turn it over to you. This past summer, I had, and they happen to anybody who's ever quit drinking, you'll have like that itch of, ooh, man, like, it would be good to have X, Y, and Z right now, right? And mine was, I had just finished mowing the lawn, and I was like so hot and sweaty. It was like 95 degrees, and I was like, it'd be really good right now would be like a vodka tonic or something like that. So I go inside, and of course we have a Tito's from like, I think it's like a 4 or 5 year old Tito's. We had maybe had like a third of it, and then it just has been sitting on the shelf for 4 years, not touched. And I was like, I wonder. And I just popped it and I sniffed and I almost threw up. I was like, oh my God, I was drinking this willingly. And now I'm at the point, I don't even find alcohol appealing, right? But that didn't happen overnight. That was a behavioral change that I had to make the decision. I'm doing this because it's going to be better for me. And then the long game, I need to be around for my family. So I say all that you have a process, the alcohol freedom process, and you're working with folks who, they've gone through, or they're going through these instances right now. What does that look like on average in your experience? Because I'm sure there's a mentality a lot of folks just imagine like this slunken drunk person who they're just, they're slurring their words. They're, always late to work. They're always hungover. But to your point, could be just the average person with a beer you see every day after work, right? Like, tell us more about what that looks like and what you found to be helpful.
There's a spectrum. Problematic drinking, abusive drinking. There's a spectrum. I will tell you that for some reason, I get high functioning alcoholics. I get successful alcoholics, right? The ones who have managed to kind of keep all the balls in the air, the house, the job, the kids, to keep everything together and function at a very high level while completely destroying themselves. It's interesting, man. We mentioned the idea of booze being a coping mechanism. Well, it's a terrible coping mechanism if you got to pick one, right? Because it affects the mind, body, and soul. And unless you deal with all three of those, unless you treat it as a 360-degree disorder, eventually the call of that will break you. Something will happen. You'll lose a job. You'll lose a parent. Some kind of tragedy or accident will happen, and it will still be there. Like you say, you had a very visceral reaction when you opened that bottle of Tito's. You're like, it was like poison to you, right? And that's really what it takes. It takes some kind of transcendental, some kind of event that happens to you where it just locks in, Brian. It locks in and you're like, no, this is poison. I'm worth more than this. I'm worth more than this. So yeah. I've come up with an 8-week, very simple 60-day program that addresses mind, body, and soul. It is not difficult. If I catch the right drinker at the right time and I give them the right data in the right order, it's not that difficult. You do not need, at this point in 2026, you don't need a lifetime membership to AA. I mean, if you consider that Alcoholics Anonymous is now 90 years old. And if you think about the state of mental health treatment, physical health treatment, I mean, 90 years ago, Brian, we were using leeches as a detox method. We were giving people frontal lobotomies to cure depression. And the AA program has never changed. Never changed. It's the exact same program that it was 90 years ago. And it's odd because if you think about it, think about what we know about the nature of trauma, the nature of addiction, how the brain really works in terms of upper and lower brains. Think about what we know about diet, nutrition, supplementation, exercise. Think about what we know now, 90 years ago, that we didn't. And so I find it odd that AA has never been updated. It's never been, you go there and there's birthday cakes and cookies and muffins. And it's the last thing you should be eating if you're trying to quit drinking. A ketogenic diet or a low carb diet is your friend, man.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you just made me think of the Planet. This is basically the Planet Fitness approach to like that quitting alcohol. It's like you would walk into Planet Fitness, they got the pizzas and the donuts. It's like, I don't think that's the intended goal of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. And it's wild too, because at a certain point, like, especially if you have a head for history, you can actually go back and trace where Alcoholics Anonymous became an extension of Rockefeller Western medicine. The guys from AA actually took a $5,500 loan from the Rockefeller Foundation because they were going to have to close their doors. They couldn't really afford advertising. People weren't showing up, but the Rockefeller Foundation got involved, gave them a grant of $5,500. And all of a sudden, AA was in Reader's Digest, Saturday Afternoon Post, or all of the huge magazines of the day. You then started to see Alcoholics Anonymous being talked about as a cure for alcoholism. But now we know the Rockefeller takeover of natural medicine back in the 1900s, late 1910s, as it turns out, addiction and recovery just became another extension of Rockefeller Medicine. And so AA at this point, I mean, I went through 3 rounds with them. God bless, right? But it's kind of become like the Dollar General of alcohol recovery, of addiction recovery. There's better ways to do it. And so what I've done is I've reduced it down to 8 weeks, B. I've reduced it down to 8 weeks. And again, it won't be for everyone. If you are chronically drinking, if you're throwing up blood every morning, please don't sign up for my program. Please go see a doctor. Please, there's detoxes that you have to do. But I've come up with something that is to the point. It's smart, it's modern, and it works. It works. I'm so excited about it. And even better, I'm giving it away for free to veterans. So if you're a veteran of the military, I will teach you how to do this absolutely free.
We talked to Wiley Gray back a few years ago, and he was talking about how tough it is for veterans and how I mean, just like the fact, and he's a veteran himself, and alcohol is one of those go-to medications, right?
It's all they got. It's all they got. That's their only coping mechanism. So these guys, it's an unhealthy relationship with alcohol is literally handed to them. And so then when they leave, that sticks around.
And the war on drugs has made it difficult to have alternatives. Like you mentioned, exploring LSD and such. But I mean, Wiley Gray, when he was on the show, he was promoting, just cannabis use for veterans, which, I mean, again, credit to the Trump administration. They rescheduled, or at least they're promoting the rescheduling of marijuana, cannabis down to, I think it's like Schedule 3 or 4.
Schedule
3 now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Schedule 3, from what it was, a Schedule 1, which made it almost untouchable, right? Especially for veterans who are going through the VA, that really made it inaccessible. So
you
now
you do studies on it, Brian.
Exactly.
You couldn't even do studies on it.
And that's the part is like, you talk about the right to try, right? Like if you have this marketplace where the only thing that's permitted is quite literally a poison, which alcohol is. I'm not this is not a judgment call. This is an objective statement of fact. Alcohol is a poison. That is why our body reacts to it in the way it does. That's why we have liver disease, because alcohol poisons the liver. And why is it poison? Because it is poison. That's why. So like when we look at it objectively speaking, and that's permitted, and yet alternatives like cannabis, which I'm not saying that and this is the other part too, like folks who are on more of the anti-drug side, they'll excuse alcohol and then they'll say, well, cannabis is bad, you can smell it everywhere and people aren't productive. And I'm like, 88,000 deaths a year are contributed to alcohol related driving accidents, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on, let's just be able to call balls and strikes here. And I know, just like there was, I'm sure back, when there was a whole conversation with the SNAP going to junk food conversation, and all of a sudden, Bradley, I don't know if you noticed this, there were these influencers. They started to all of a sudden say, this is ridiculous. They're trying to cut funding for people to buy what they want, right? And then you find out that these folks were actually being paid for by these big food corporations. I can almost guarantee that there are folks, same church, different pew, from the big alcohol companies that are out there, because if all of a sudden they lose their monopoly on not their specific alcohol, but the monopoly on the actual product itself, and now all of a sudden they have to compete not with other alcohol brands, but now they're competing with cannabis brands. Oh, what? We actually have to differentiate. We can't just keep doing the same thing we've been doing for 60, 70 years. We have to innovate. These guys are going to eat our lunch. Oh, well, we should just control the marketplace. And that's what they've done for decades. And it's changing, right? It is changing. And I think that that's a positive, because we're going to hopefully see less folks. And by the way, Bradley, like I'm saying this with all love, our goal should be, we don't want to see your alcohol freedom process be needed anymore. We want a society where people don't need this stuff, right?
That would be lovely. Nothing would make me happier at all than to not have to help people out of that quicksand, man. You're correct. I'll go ahead and be Nostradamus. I'll tell you, in 10 years, we are going to look at alcohol in the same manner that we look at cigarettes now. It's coming. Jim Beam Jim Beam, one of the world's largest whiskey makers, one of the largest whiskey distillers, has suspended all operations for a year. They're actually sitting on too much product, which is staggering to me, right? And not only is there the cannabis option now, but I'll tell you, there are some absolutely wonderful non-alcoholic beers out there. I'll tell you, if it's 85 degrees out and you give me a Corona Zero with a lime, I can't tell the difference. I really can't tell the difference. There's a fantastic brewery out of San Diego, California called Athletic Brewing Company, and they make half a dozen delicious non-alcoholic beers because at the end of the day,
I drink it constantly. It's one of my favorites. Yes.
Do you? Oh, that's great. Yeah, because look, the hops, the barley, the water, that ain't the problem, brother. That ain't the problem. It's the alcohol. It's the spirit of alcohol that gets thrown into every single can, every single bottle. That is the problem. So, especially as I begin to, with the alcohol freedom process, we don't quit cold turkey. I never suggest to anyone to quit cold turkey because sometimes it can actually be physically harmful. So we take 10 days to 2 weeks and we taper down. And for some of my clients, we actually will start to work in the non-alcoholic beers as a substitute to kind of help them during the transition period as we taper down to zero. Like there's so many different pieces of ammunition that we have now that we frankly just didn't know about 90 years ago when AA started. And so the idea of a lifetime membership to AA in 2026, it's just not, like, no offense, man, but there's almost nothing from the reality from 90 years ago that's applicable to the reality now. And so that model of a lifetime membership, I don't know. I don't know if it looks as good now. And so I wanted to do something that if we did it and we found the right drinker, the right kind of motivated person that was ready to put it down and walk away, that you could actually do it quite quickly. And again, like I'll give you an example. Nobody really talks about the B vitamins. And that's one of the cores of this program. I swear to you, if you integrate B1 into your diet, and there are different forms of B1, just as one example, you put a high dose of B1 into your diet, you're going to be stunned. You'll be stunned at the difference in brain fog, at the difference in clarity. Even, I haven't actually taken it this morning, but even in speech, you'll find words flow much easier with a fair amount of B1 in your system. It's wild. It's wild. We are under mineralized. We are under vitamined. We are nutritionally deficient. And so that's a fair part of AFP as well.
All right, Bradley, I just realized I'm already keeping you over time. Shame on me. We had too much fun, though.
This was great, though. No, this was wonderful, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, I've really enjoyed our chat. And folks, by the way, I know for your average listener, as they're listening to these episodes, sometimes it can feel very untangible, I guess. Like sometimes we're talking about economic policy, or we're talking about these big political events, and you kind of just feel like, like, okay, yeah, I really can't do anything about that, can I? This is an episode where I want you to feel truly empowered, right? Like if you are sitting there and you feel that this conversation was talking about you, that's God's way of saying, hey, here's a wake-up call, right? Like, and here's a path, right? Don't feel that you have to embrace your current status quo as the rest of your life, right? Like my job is in the day job to help move people away from their status quos. I'm hoping today's episode, for folks who they needed to hear this to help them kind of get out of their comfort zone, I'm hoping that was accomplished, because at the end of the day, we need to be able to feel that we are valuable, right? That we are not useless, that we are not You're just sitting there, just being consumers, that we are able to be producers. And again, if you ever just need a wake up call, like you go watch My 600-Pound Life for an episode or two.
Yeah.
Go watch Dr. Nazarian as he's like, well, it's because you're too fat, right? Like that's my favorite part. And then they're like, I'm not that fat. And it's like, you're 653 pounds. I'm sorry.
Go to your local Walmart.
Go to your local Walmart. Yeah, that's right. They'll be on the buggies, and you can tell the buggies are struggling because you can hear the motors screaming. But I digress.
It's tough, man, right? Because you know that one part of that is addiction, is depression, is right, and some of it is ignorance around nutrition or an unwillingness to change, right? Like most of us, most people at this point, post COVID and them chasing us around with needles for a couple of years, like most people are still traumatized. Most people are functioning under some kind of hypnosis. Dude, we've been in the crosshairs of a dozen different psychological operations for the last 10 plus years. It is no wonder that folks around us are in a tough place. And it's why I do what I do, because reinvention, I swear to you, man, and you are living proof of this. Reinvention is possible. You can do it.
Bradley, this has been a great conversation.
I know,
folks,
this is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And folks, I know, like you have tons of podcasts you can listen to every single week. And by the way, this kind of goes to why at the Brian Nichols Show, we've scaled things back. We used to do back 3 years ago, Bradley, we were doing 5 days a week. Then we went to 3 days a week, and we're down to 1 day a week, Bradley. And
are you really? Good for you, man.
And here's why. Like I got a lot moving behind the scenes, right? Both personally and professionally. But also I wanted my audience to feel that they're able to when they pick the Brian Nichols Show as their choice for a podcast to listen to. I know you have literally dozens of other podcasts in your feed you can choose from. Why the Brian Nichols Show? I want you to leave every episode feeling three things, and you all know it, right? I want you to be educated, enlightened, and informed, right? I still got the old sign. It's still here, right?
That's wonderful.
So like we have that as our North Star. That has always been the role of the show. And I'm finding that as we can do these longer form conversations, Bradley, like we had today, like these types of chats, this is more impactful, not just for me, but I also feel for the audience, because they're able to take an episode like this that normally, if it was the old model of the show, it was 3 days a week. And it would be like, hey, we would chat about this in 25 minutes, rush to the outro, and then it'd be on your way. We were able to take some time today, really dig into things into like the meat and potatoes versus just the appetizers. And I'm getting more value of doing these longer form shows personally, but also I know my audience is as well, because now they don't have to choose. Okay, Brian has 3 episodes this week. Which one do I choose? Now I can pick one good episode. I know it's going to be a rock solid episode. And I hope, folks, you're seeing that you're leaving the episodes even more educated, enlightened, and informed. So I guess that's my final thoughts for today, Bradley. Bring us home. What do you want the audience to take away from today's conversation? Oh, geez. Well, again, thank you so much for the time. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It ain't sexy, the work that I do, right? And it's not spectacular. It is, it's not war in the Middle East. It's not, we're all going to die. There's none of that here. It is one guy attempting to be at a high level of service for his fellow conservative, his fellow patriot, his fellow veteran. Right. That's really what this is about. And so if you would like to learn more about my work, you can visit 2 websites, The Awake Coach, just as it sounds, theawakecoach.com. And if you're alcohol specific, you can have a look at my small group program, which begins mid-February. That is alcoholfreedomprocess.com. I have made it free for veterans. And Brian, it's $144 for 2 months. For civilians. I'm making it highway robbery, man. Dude, I'm making it so there's almost no excuse, because and by the way, if you're a heavy drinker out there, will you do me a favor tonight? Just do the math.
get a calculator out, get your phone out, and do the math on how much money you're spending every month and every year on booze. Hopefully you'll have a moment of clarity and you'll go to Alcohol Freedom Process. Throw me $144 and I will deliver to you every single thing that you need to know about how to take alcohol off the table. No drama, no crying, no victimhood, no self-labeling. I'll teach you every single thing you need to know step by step with no steps left out for $144. My accountant is not happy, but my clients are.
Good stuff, Bradley.
Thanks, man.
No, absolutely. I've really enjoyed this this conversation. And folks, if you've got some value from today's episode, which I know you have, please do me a favor. Go ahead, give today's episode a share. And when you do, if you know of somebody who this episode you think would really land with them, this is not a confrontational episode, right? This is a very welcoming episode.
Everybody knows somebody.
100%,
Everybody knows
100%.
Somebody, right? Someone who's suffering, right? Everybody knows somebody.
And that is for us, my call to action, right? Is be the friend. Like sometimes you just need to have that one friend that reaches out and say, hey, everything okay? Right. And to be that resource. So if you know some folks who could use some love, hey, if you're somebody who needs some love, reach out for some help, reach out for some support, reach out to folks like Bradley, because they're there to offer you a hand. And by the way, they have processes and they can help coach you along the way. So with that being said, Bradley, again, thank you for joining us. And folks, if you got some value, please go ahead, give today's episode a share. When you do, tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty on Facebook, X, and Instagram. As for the show, we are a video show as well as a podcast. So you can watch the show over on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, or you can listen to the show on the go. Head to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is you consume your podcasting content. Just search The Brian Nichols Show. Hit that subscribe button, and wherever it is you watch or listen to your content, just make sure you hit that little notification bell, because every Thursday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll have a brand new episode that will air. And I guarantee it will do what? Leave you educated, enlightened, and informed. With that being said, Bradley, I'm going to give you the mic here for the last words for the audience. What would you like to leave the audience with today?
Your only job in the next 24 to 36 months is to take care of yourself. We have been asked by President Trump and others, we've been asked to take back our country, and we can't do it without taking control over our lives. If there's personal work you need to do on yourself, there is no lack of resources out in the reality, whether it's free or paid. Help is available. Help is available if you are ready to take care of yourself. If you're ready to raise your game, there are people out there who can help. Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is a good place to leave today's conversation. So we'll go ahead and put a pin in things, but have no fear. We'll have a brand new episode hitting your podcast and video feeds next Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show for Bradley Burlingame. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.